Ooh, we have a cat with us.
Hey,
This is
Hello,
my cat,
Kitty.
Gabe.
Oh, Michael made it. Okay.
Oh, yay.
What's your cat's name, Jen?
Gabe. He's kind of like a dog. He wants my attention constantly. So, yeah. He'll get bored in a minute and I'll be able to kick him off.
ever since I had a baby, my dog has been like starved for attention, and he's like constantly like jumping on us and super jealous. It's crazy.
All right, we are all set with the recording, so Michael, you can get us started.
Hey, everybody. Awesome. Okay, let's start with just some updates from the team. I actually don't have much. I've been kind of underwater with just like meetings and catching up on emails and stuff. So I don't have a lot of progress on like sort of OKRs and projects and stuff. But yeah, let's moving along. Portia, you got an update?
Yeah, I finally got the host, give me a moment. I finally got one feature up and running for the community sync helper bot, so people can paste their agenda and it'll be put on GitHub as a GitHub issue. So that's pretty cool. The second thing I'm working on is we would like to have an announcement bar so that we can get more people and more people from the community to show up for our community syncs. And we'll start with the IPFS weekly. So working with Ollie in terms of just going through the Hugo site that we have and going through the partials and such. And finally, I've also worked on first steps in terms of our contributor experience. So I'm currently creating an outline where we can figure out what are some of the pain points contributors have, and to look at some and refactor some of the documentation. So that's going to begin really soon. And so that's what I've been working on.
Can I just ask you about that? And the announcement bar, is that to show up on a website? Where does that go?
Yeah, that shows up on IPFS.
Okay. Cool. Anyone else have questions for Portia?
So yeah, so it'll show up on the homepage. It'll be up there for like 2 hours or so, and then it'll go away. So people will know, hey, here's a Zoom link, and here's where we can like link in, and we can click on the link and get to the call.
Nice.
Awesome. Terry, updates?
Yeah, I have a few. So it's become a never-ending job helping chapter organizers set up their chapters, which is great that we have so much interest. So I think this is maybe all since last week. Mumbai, Hong Kong, and Seattle are live. DC, Beijing, Berlin are in process. So in our agenda, you'll find links to the chapter listings, requests in progress, chapter setup instructions, if anyone's interested in finding any of that. And as I've been going, I've been kind of creating templates for myself to try to make the copying and pasting easier and make the whole process faster as I go. So as I kind of master that and get it to what I want, then we can look at how we would automate it. But for now, I'm just kind of playing around with the system and seeing what works. I started trying, like Michael suggested last week, having a couple of open issues to start the organizers getting in that mode of, oh, here are things I should do. I can use the issue queue, etc. So giving that a shot. And we also now are including a code of conduct from the beginning in the template, which the organizers can change if they want to. But since that's one of the requirements before a chapter can be listed on our site, it's now part of that original process that we give them to start with. So one of the things I did, which is part of our OKRs, is to kick off a discussion about the Proto School roadmap by the end of this quarter. That's one of my goals, is to have our roadmap for the year laid out. So in our agenda here, you'll find a link to the GitHub issue where we started that roadmap discussion. And then Michael had suggested kind of a messaging exercise that they tried and liked for IPLD. So I created a Google Doc where we can explore some of that, like looking at slogans and taglines and who is actually the audience that we're trying to talk to. So please feel free to jump in on either of those documents. We got a hex sticker designed for Proto School, which is awesome. There's a link there to where you can see the design, and I will let you know as soon as we have the process in place for how you can go about requesting those for your chapter events. Oh, so I spent some time with Alan Shaw going through the existing resources on the file API. There are some tutorials and examples and things out there, and then the documentation itself. And I'm doing all of that in preparation for building a Proto School tutorial on the file API, because it feels like a more compelling use case to want to share a file than to want to share some random JavaScript object. So that's our next top priority tutorial. And you can find a link in the agenda to that issue, where I've laid out, after going through the existing resources, I laid out what I think the tutorial would look like in terms of the commands you'd learn, in what order, and I'd love feedback on that before I get started building, but that's one of my next big to-dos. And the other thing I'm doing, which is sort of tangentially related, is I'm one of the organizers this year for the Global Diversity CFP Day here in Boston, but this is actually a global event. I included a link there so you can check out events near you. So this event is aimed at people from underrepresented or marginalized communities, and this is in the context of tech conferences, right? So women are a great percentage of the population, but you're not going to see them much on the stage at a tech conference. So women and people of color and all kinds of folks who we don't see as much as we'd like to on tech stages. The event is a full-day workshop that's structured to give people tools and feedback from people with more experience about how to pick conferences to submit to and how to write compelling abstracts and design slides that look good and battle imposter syndrome or nerves or all of that stuff. So this is a great event. I went as a student last year and gave a few talks this year, so I'm happy to be mentoring. Mentoring is open to everyone, even if you are someone who we would expect to find on a tech stage. We'd love for your feedback. So feel free to go to that global site. This is something you might want to share with your chapters too, if you're a chapter leader, because the more people in your chapter feel comfortable speaking about technology, about anything really, the more they can be kind of evangelizing for all of these decentralized web concepts. So that's the connection back to this group. And then next up for me is that file API tutorial, like I said. I'm also going to start recruiting authors and content for a publication that will be coming soon. So the publication itself does not exist yet, but that doesn't mean we can't start working on the content. So I will be hoping to find people with great stories about the decentralized web, whether that's use cases of cool things they've built with IPFS, or sort of thought leadership type pieces on why the decentralized web matters, any of those things, tutorials, any of that stuff. So if you're interested, feel free to reach out to me personally. And then I just want to give people a heads up that I'm going to be out from January 30th to February 4th at GitMerge in FOSDEM in Brussels. So you should expect slower responses from me during that time. That's it. Any questions on any of my stuff?
Cool. Jen, do you want to give us an update on any sort of newsletter stuff or any other stuff in your area?
I don't have an update so much because it's
Cool.
pretty routine, but I did want to come and I guess my stuff is kind of more towards the discussion end of the meeting, but I wanted to get feedback from you all, see how I can support this group through the newsletter, if that makes sense. I liked being able to push out the Proto School stuff, but any other community endeavors that are going on that the greater community should know about. And then I'm going to be posting an issue in the newsletter repo, just asking for feedback in general, because I know there was the issue of people wanting the contributors to be listed every week. And there's some functionality there that is beyond my pay grade in order to do that. But I was curious, I've been doing it for a few months now, if people had ideas for stuff or wanted to see it changed up in any way. So yeah. But does anybody have any questions for me, I guess, about newsletter stuff?
I don't have any questions, but I do have a comment. I think what we would like to have in the very near future is to like highlight like maybe like one contributor as opposed to like having a laundry list. So we'll just take like one contributor. What we can also have like an interview. We can interview certain contributors and have that published so they can talk about how to get started, what was their motivation, and what exactly are they working on in terms of IPFS.
I like that. Cool, thank you.
Michael, you're on mute. Will you talk to us?
Damn it. Sorry. I was just saying, let's move into the sort of open office hours portion now. Does anybody have stuff that they want to bring up or discussions that they want to sort of unpack now as well?
Hi, Michael. It's Kevin from Hong Kong. Thanks, Terry, for me, helping me to set up the Hong Kong Proto School. And I just have and I just have a little update about the Proto School Hong Kong, the process. And we actually have been in touch with some of the Hong Kong top universities, and then to see if we can bring the Proto School or even promote the idea of Proto School into the school. So because educating the public in Hong Kong is not an easy job. And I think with the help of the schools, we can get some more people to learn and contribute to the community. So that's what we are working on right now. So we just want to gather like more people to the community and actually to contribute to the community. Yes, that's what we're doing right now.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. And what we would like, it would be cool for us to know like exactly how are you outreaching to these universities and who are you outreaching to? Like, are you outreaching to like computer science students who are into like networking, economic students? So it'd be really interesting to see the kind of students that'll be attracted to Proto School.
Yes, actually, we are reaching to like by faculty, let's say engineering and computer science faculty. And actually, we do have one of the university in Hong Kong. They're starting to having a blockchain school in the university. So we are kind of like negotiating with them. So see how we can work out with them. Yes.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I think one of the things I'd love to see in the organizing repo in Proto School is any of those things where something is working particularly well for one chapter, that they can share those ideas. So for example, Dan, who's already hosted an event, if he wants to share some ideas on what worked well with mentorship on site or things he forgot to think about before the event or whatever it might be. And as you go along in this process of talking to the university, if there are techniques that work, I'm sure it would be a great kind of source of learning for the leaders to see what each other are doing. And some things will be cultural, right? Not everything that works in one place will work in another. But it's worth throwing out some ideas and seeing what sticks with other people.
Yeah, absolutely. So I can put a little something up on my feedback for the last one. And I guess the other thing is an update on what I'm planning in the future is so one of the things I'm doing outside of this is playing ETH Denver, which is really an exciting thing that's happening here and the 14th through the 17th, I believe, of February. And before that, we're having something that looks akin to a startup week where we have community submitted events. And one of these for sure is going to be kind of, I'm thinking along the lines of maybe a brief demo introduction, but like a lab class style meetup where we can interact with Proto School, do the tutorials, and have a few of the community who have been through some of them to help with people who are there who might need it. So I'm going to give you some feedback on if that works or not, but I've had success with that kind of style at other kind of like general learning meetups. So that'll be fun. I'm also have an order of some Proto School or excuse me, not Proto School, IPFS and Proto Labs swag that I'll be passing out for there. And yeah, I don't know if those stickers will be ready in time for mid-February. If they are, I would love to pass some of those out.
My impression is that they will be. I've just been chatting with Jesse. He's getting it sent to the people who produce our swag in general so they can get them printed and added to the broader inventory. So I will keep you posted as soon as we have that. But he's closely, like he's on your specific request and hoping we can get the Proto ones to you. So I know he's thinking about that and we'll do his best.
Stellar. Cool. Thanks, guys.
Anyone else have updates they want to share? We have about 10 minutes left.
So actually, I might have one other thing. I know I had started up just a little issue in the organizing chapter to say hi and get introduced to everybody. And so I was hoping maybe I could have everybody check that out and add a little who I am and what I'm passionate about, what I'm doing here kind of thing. I think it'd be a fun way so we can all feel like a more galvanized community across the borders here.
And where is that? Can you say it again?
Yeah, it's I believe it's under the IPFS community repo, or no, excuse me, is it Proto School Organizing, I believe?
Yeah, Proto School Organizing. So just a place for chapter organizers to introduce themselves and why they're excited and what they're doing in their chapters, which is great. That's exactly the kind of discussion we want to have there, Dan. So I appreciated you starting that.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. I want to ping Jim real quick. Thanks for that sample code that you put in PeerPad.
Mm-hmm.
That was certainly helpful. So I had some general questions about PeerPad because it's actually come up a few times from like other community members.
Mm-hmm.
So like it feels like it's been like close to launching for like as long as I've seen it. It seems to be in like a perpetual almost ready phase. Like what do you think about the current sort of like reliability and usability on PeerPad?
It's really, really close. We've been doing some scalability testing. I've been working the last week trying to solve, like, when you scale it up to like 20 people, one person would get like corruption sometimes, which is like really, really bad. So I've narrowed it down. I've done like extreme forensic sort of work. So that's going to be fixed in a day or two. So then the big issue blocker, I would say, would be just making sure that the data gets pinned like forever. Like if people are editing data and then they go back 3 weeks later and their document isn't there anymore, it'll be saved locally in their web browser, but like, you know, for other people, that would not be the user experience that we want. So just making sure. So we have this thing called a pinner, which joins the collaboration, and it watches everything and it saves it to a disk. And we have on the development version, we have one running on Heroku. Problem with Heroku is they have ephemeral disks, so like if it gets restarted, it's saving it to the local disk. So we have to save it somewhere else. So I don't see it as being a big job, but there seems to be a lot of different ways places we could save the data and like for long-term use. I think being IPFS, it'd be good to store it in IPFS, right? So
yeah, well, and you can point IPFS storage at an S3 bucket as well.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different strategies. So I think we just have to pick one and make sure that we're sort of in sync with the infrastructure team so that they can keep it alive and babysit it and make sure, you know, it's sort of hands off, like the developers don't have to run it. Although we don't mind running it for the first little bit, but it's
right.
We want to have like a bit of a handoff. So it's just that last mile.
Okay.
So the development versions getting pretty stable. Like I'm looking at like what Portia's trying to do, and ideally we could just, if you're doing a Vue.js app, I'd like to actually just do a Vue version of it, so you don't have to use React. You just embed it straight into your website. You don't have to link to anywhere else.
Right.
It's just
I
an
think
embeddable
also,
component.
yeah, I think that the really cool thing there is like, so we like part of Portia's thing is just taking notes from somewhere and then adding them to GitHub. And the cool thing about this is that there isn't really like, there's not an API because the data is not like locked up somewhere. It's just, we needed like a client sample to pull the data out of whatever decentralized network and then like give me the pad. So that was actually like a really kind of cool feature, and like kind of shows like how cool the distributed web is. Yeah, it's this is all sort of moot until it's reliable enough to use for all our note taking.
Yeah, that's really close. I think that what I'm curious about is like how would, like, you can encrypt all the content in there, and there's like a public key and a private key. Although you can even run it unencrypted, but then that lets anybody vandalize it. So it'd be sort of interesting, like how you would maybe tie that in, and maybe you could use like GitHub authentication or something. I don't know how you want to. I noticed the Portia's app is using GitHub. Like you put your GitHub user key in there. So maybe combine that with
yeah. So this is like phase one. So what I would like the users to do, and its first phase, is to clone the repo and then put in their key, in their individual key, and then use it locally. That's not really a good user experience. So I'll have to figure out a way where we don't need the key, and we don't need like the user's key. I haven't thought that through, but in terms of PurePad, what I would like to do, one, I would like for us to have like an initial meeting where we can just talk about the different features of PurePad and such. And then like a second follow-up meeting where we can really talk about exactly how we can combine Vue and PurePad together, combine the contributor automation and, community sync. The community sync automation and PurePad. We were originally, so I was working with Google Docs, and I mean, Google Docs, it works for some of the community syncs, but we want to stay in the spirit of using something that's also the distributed web as well. And so PurePad really fits well into meeting that goal. And I can't wait to like have more conversations with you and to play around more with PurePad and so that we can use it.
Yeah, we still have to put in the tutorial stuff. Obviously here, make it work with Proto School. So I like the idea of dog fooding it and trying to use it for just internal use.
Yeah. So for the whole embedding thing, like rather than them playing around with all these different plugin architectures, like if it was just a web component, then it would work everywhere. So that would be nice.
Yeah, it'd be nice. Does anybody know JS IPFS work can be do ES6 modules? I think you can do a script tag, but I don't know if you can do like.
I'm not sure.
So I mean, like, okay. I don't think that we can include them in the IPFS source tree, because at some point you could, because all of that can be imported from Node as well.
Yeah. If you're getting bundling, then
but if you have a bundler and you import IPFS, and like, I mean, we're doing this in Vue, obviously. Like, we're using ES6 module syntax, and we're importing IPFS into the same thing, and then Webpack is just compiling it down.
That's the fun part, where you get into bundling and slows everything down. So.
Just want to give a quick time check. We have another minute.
Okay. All right. Well, that was great. Thank you everybody for popping in. Had a nice chat. Thanks for the updates, and see y'all next week.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Everyone,
Bye.
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 Bye.